When you first encounter the teaching of Paramahansa Yogananda, it can seem scattered and fragmented across different topics and themes. One day, you hear about meditation and how to still the mind. Another day, the teaching focuses on karma and the law of cause and effect. Then you encounter teachings about reincarnation, about chakras and the energy system of the body, about God consciousness and divine realization, about the nature of the soul and its relationship to the body, about death and what happens after, about the purpose of human existence, about the evolutionary destiny of all consciousness. It feels like dozens of separate spiritual ideas loosely connected by a general spiritual theme. Most people who study Yogananda treat it this way. They pick and choose which teachings resonate with them personally. They embrace some ideas enthusiastically, while ignoring others that seem less relevant to their immediate concerns or that contradict their existing beliefs. They create a spiritual cafeteria, taking what appeals and leaving the rest. This approach is a fundamental mistake that prevents genuine understanding. It's like trying to understand a symphony by listening to random individual notes. You might hear some beautiful sounds, but you miss the structure, the harmony, the way everything builds toward a coherent whole. Yogananda's entire body of teaching is not a collection of interesting spiritual concepts scattered through lectures and books. It is one unified philosophical system where each element supports and explains every other element. Each piece is a part of a greater whole. Remove any single element, and the entire structure becomes harder to understand. Try to grasp any single element in isolation from the others, and you'll miss its true meaning and significance. Add all the pieces together in their proper logical order, and they create a complete cosmology that answers every fundamental question a conscious being can ask about existence itself. What is the nature of reality? What am I? Why does the universe exist? Why is there suffering? What is the purpose of human life? What happens after death? How should I live? What is my destiny? Yogananda's system provides clear, coherent, intellectually satisfying answers to all of these questions. Tonight, we're going to reconstruct this complete system in its proper order and proper relationships. We're going to show you how each piece connects to and supports every other piece. We're going to show you how they fit together like pieces of a cosmic puzzle. We're going to present it not the way it's typically studied, piece by piece over months or years, but as an integrated whole that you can grasp as one complete and coherent vision. By the end of this exploration, you'll understand how everything Yogananda taught is interconnected at the deepest level, how it all fits together into a seamless philosophy, and how it creates a framework that is simultaneously intellectually coherent and rigorous, scientifically grounded and verifiable, and spiritually transformative in its practical application. This is the philosophy that sustained millions of people through the 20th century and continues to sustain millions today. It remains the most practical, the most scientific, and the most directly verifiable approach to spirituality and consciousness ever developed. It's a philosophy that doesn't ask you to believe anything on faith. It invites you to test everything through your own direct experience. Let's begin at the foundation, at the most basic level of understanding, and build systematically upward. Each level will rest upon and explain the previous level. Each concept will emerge naturally from what came before. Consciousness is the primary reality. At the absolute ground of Yogananda's entire philosophical system, serving as the foundation upon which everything else is built, lies one central truth. This is not a belief. This is not a hypothesis. This is Yogananda's fundamental axiom about the nature of existence. Consciousness is the fundamental substance of reality. Consciousness is primary. Everything else is secondary to consciousness. This is not consciousness as we ordinarily understand it in modern psychology and neuroscience. Modern psychology defines consciousness as a property of complex nervous systems, particularly the human brain. Neuroscience treats consciousness as something that emerges from neural complexity, a byproduct of sufficiently advanced information processing in the brain. In this materialist view, consciousness is produced by matter. The brain produces consciousness the way the liver produces bile. Yogananda's understanding is precisely the opposite. Consciousness is not produced by matter. Matter is produced by consciousness. Consciousness is not an emergent property of complex systems. Consciousness is the fundamental ground from which all systems emerge. Matter is not solid and primary. Matter is consciousness appearing in a certain frequency and density. Energy is not fundamental. Energy is consciousness vibrating at a certain frequency. Space and time are not empty containers in which matter moves. Space and time are manifestations of consciousness. This is not poetry or mysticism. This is Yogananda's precise philosophical and scientific claim. He explained it in ways that modern people trained in Western thinking could grasp. All matter is condensed energy. All energy is vibration. All vibration is consciousness expressing itself in different frequencies. Think of television broadcasting to understand this concept clearly. Electromagnetic waves carrying television signals fill the space around you right now. These waves travel through walls, through your body, through the air. They're always there, always complete, carrying the full information of every television channel simultaneously. But you don't perceive them directly. You need a television receiver to translate those invisible waves into visible images and audible sounds. Different channels represent different frequencies of the same underlying broadcast medium. The broadcast doesn't change when you change channels. Only the receiver changes. Only what the receiver picks up and how it presents what it receives changes. The universe works according to the same principle. There exists one infinite consciousness. Yogananda called it many names: Brahman, God, Spirit, Atman, the Divine, the Absolute. These terms are completely interchangeable in his teaching. They all refer to the same fundamental reality. This consciousness is not a being sitting somewhere in space making decisions about creation. It's not a person with a personality, preferences, emotions, or needs. It's the ground of all being itself. What is consciousness at this fundamental level? It's what modern physics calls the quantum field, the underlying medium from which all particles emerge and into which they dissolve. It's what mystics across all traditions call the divine, the absolute, the Godhead. It's what yogis call pure existence, consciousness, bliss. It has no beginning because it's eternal. It has no end because it's infinite. It's not created by anything because it is creation itself. It's not produced by anything because everything is produced from it. This fundamental consciousness has several essential characteristics. It is infinite, without boundary or limit. It is eternal, without beginning or end. It is unchanging in its essential nature, even though it manifests infinite changes in its expressions. It is all-knowing, containing all possible knowledge. It is all-powerful, capable of creating or dissolving any universe at will. It is all-pervading, present everywhere simultaneously. It is perfect and complete in itself, lacking nothing whatsoever. Yet, despite being absolutely complete and perfect in itself, Yogananda taught that this consciousness has one essential characteristic. It wants to experience itself. This is not a flaw or incompleteness in consciousness. It's inherent in the very nature of consciousness itself. An infinite being cannot experience itself as infinite through any direct means. Infinity experiencing itself as infinity generates no distinctive experience. How can the infinite know itself except through the experience of limitation? How can the eternal experience itself except through the experience of time? How can the universal experience itself except through the experience of being individual? How can the whole experience itself except through the experience of being part? This is the ultimate reason why the universe exists. Not because God needed creation. God lacks nothing and needs nothing. Not because consciousness was lonely or incomplete. Consciousness is eternally whole. Creation exists because consciousness delights in self-expression through infinite forms and infinite perspectives. Every star in every galaxy is God experiencing what it's like to be a star. Every animal is God experiencing what it's like to be that particular animal. Every human is God experiencing what it's like to be human. Every conscious being throughout the universe is God experiencing itself from that particular perspective. This explains something that troubles most people about existence. Why is there suffering? If God is perfect and all-powerful, why create a universe containing pain and loss and struggle? Why create beings capable of suffering? Yogananda's answer is that God didn't create suffering directly. God created the possibility of suffering by creating the possibility of separation, limitation, and ignorance. Suffering doesn't come from God. Suffering comes from consciousness forgetting itself, from being identified with limitation, from believing in separation. When an individual consciousness becomes identified with its temporary form, when it believes the illusion of separation is real, when it forgets its true nature as infinite consciousness, suffering inevitably arises. This is not punishment from God. This is natural consequence of ignorance. A being that believes itself limited will experience limitation. A being that believes itself separate will experience separation. A being that believes itself mortal will fear death. But here's where Yogananda's system becomes practical and transformative. If consciousness is the fundamental reality, if you are an expression of that consciousness temporarily appearing as an individual body and mind, then you are not ultimately separate from anyone or anything. The deepest truth about your being is that you are the same consciousness as everyone and everything else. You are experiencing itself through your particular perspective. Your individual consciousness is unique and eternal, but your sense of being divided from the infinite whole is the cosmic illusion. This understanding, once genuinely grasped, changes everything about how you understand yourself and your place in existence. The structure of manifestation, the hierarchy of worlds and frequencies. If consciousness is primary and creates all that exists, how exactly does it create? How does something infinite and undifferentiated become a universe with distinct objects and beings and physical laws? How does potential become manifest? How does the invisible become visible? Yogananda taught that consciousness emanates outward in increasingly dense frequencies and densities, creating multiple dimensions or worlds or vibrational frequencies. Each level represents a different degree of manifestation, from the most subtle to the most gross. At the highest frequency is pure consciousness itself, what Yogananda called the Godhead, or Brahman, or sometimes the Absolute or the Unmanifest. This is consciousness, completely undifferentiated from itself, without any form or quality or characteristic whatsoever, pure existence in its most abstract possible sense. This level is beyond thought, beyond emotion, beyond any quality we can conceive or imagine. Most human minds cannot truly conceive of this state because conception itself requires qualities and characteristics. We understand things by their qualities, but the Godhead has no qualities. It simply is. One step down in frequency is what Yogananda called the causal world, or causal plane. This is the realm of pure ideas and pure archetypes. Everything that will ever exist in denser forms exists first as pure potential in the causal world. It's the level of subtle cause, the level where effects haven't yet manifested into perceptible form. If the physical universe is a finished sculpture, the causal world is the sculptor's idea before it's carved. If the physical universe is a completed book, the causal world contains the author's outline and all the characters and plot elements and themes in potential form, not yet written out into sequential narrative. In the causal world exist all the archetypal patterns. The archetype of humanity exists there. The archetype of love exists there. The archetype of justice exists there. Every possible form that could ever manifest physically exists first as pure pattern in the causal realm. It's the realm of pure potentiality. Below the causal world is the astral world, or astral plane. This is the realm of energy and light. It's less dense than the physical world, but subtler than the causal world. This is where souls exist between physical incarnations. It's the realm of dreams and subtle perception. In the astral world, thought becomes instantly visible. Your consciousness directly manifests form. This is why in dreams, you can fly or change scenery instantly. In the astral, consciousness hasn't become trapped in the density of physical matter yet. Thought and consciousness are still fluid, not yet crystallized into physical form. In the astral world exist astral beings, what religions call angels, or spirits, or devas. In the astral world exist the astral bodies of all living beings, the subtle energy forms that survive death of the physical body. In the astral world, advanced yogis can perceive the recorded impressions of past events impressed on the subtle fabric of reality. It's why clairvoyant beings can see auras around people, the subtle energy patterns radiating from the astral body. Below the astral world is the physical world, the densest dimension. Here consciousness has been so compressed, so condensed, so limited in frequency that it appears almost solid. Light becomes matter. Energy becomes seemingly inert and unchanging. The flexibility and fluidity of the astral world crystallizes into the apparent solidity and permanence of physical matter. But it's all still consciousness. Every atom is consciousness vibrating at the physical frequency. Every particle is consciousness, appearing in densest form. The difference between your consciousness and a rock's consciousness is purely a matter of frequency. The rock vibrates at a much slower frequency, so it appears completely inert, but at the deepest level, it's the same consciousness appearing at different frequencies. These worlds aren't separate places located at different positions in space. They're not up there or down there in any physical sense. They all occupy the same space but at different frequencies, like radio stations broadcasting simultaneously, all occupying the same airspace, but perceptible only from the frequency you're tuned to. The physical world broadcasts on the lowest frequency. The astral world broadcasts on a higher frequency, occupying the same space. The causal world broadcasts on a still higher frequency. All existing simultaneously, all interpenetrating, but perceptible only from the frequency consciousness is vibrating at. A being vibrating only at the physical frequency perceives only the physical world and cannot perceive astral or causal dimensions, no matter how hard they try. An animal perceives mostly the physical world with some astral sensitivity. A human perceives the physical world as primary, but has occasional access to astral perception in dreams and deep meditation. An advanced yogi consciously perceives all dimensions simultaneously, vibrating at multiple frequencies at once. This hierarchy explains one of the deepest mysteries of existence, the nature of creation and dissolution on a cosmic scale. Yogananda taught that the universe undergoes vast cycles of creation and dissolution. A complete creation cycle, what Hindu texts call a Brahma day, or a kalpa, lasts approximately 2 billion years. During this time, consciousness gradually manifests denser and denser forms. During the beginning of a creation cycle, consciousness is mostly in subtle causal and astral forms. Gradually, as the cycle progresses, more and more consciousness manifests into physical matter. Life progresses from subtle to gross, from formless to formed. Then, mysteriously, After billions of years, the cycle reverses. The trend toward physical manifestation stops. Consciousness begins withdrawing back up through the frequencies, back toward subtle forms. Physical forms dissolve. Matter becomes energy. Energy becomes subtler thought forms. Eventually, everything returns to pure consciousness. The physical universe disappears. The astral dimensions dissolve. The causal patterns dissolve. Everything returns to pure, undifferentiated consciousness. And then, after a period of rest, the cycle begins again. This is the cosmic heartbeat, the breathing in and breathing out of God across billions of years. An individual soul follows the same pattern, but on a much smaller scale. Each human soul goes through countless cycles of manifestation and withdrawal, of taking form and releasing form, of incarnating in the physical world and returning to astral and causal realms across thousands of lifetimes. The individual pattern mirrors the cosmic pattern on a micro scale. The soul, your true identity beyond body and mind. Now we come to the most important understanding for your personal existence and your spiritual journey. What you actually are at the deepest level. Yogananda taught with absolute clarity and uncompromising emphasis that you are not your body, you are not your mind, you are not your thoughts or emotions or memories or personality or ego or social roles. You are the soul. The soul is an eternal individual consciousness. It's a unique perspective of infinite consciousness that persists through time unchanged, while your body changes from infant to adult to elder. While your mind develops and learns and sometimes decays, while your thoughts and emotions and beliefs come and go like weather passing through the sky, the soul remains constant. The soul is the witness to all these changes. The soul is the awareness that observes the body and mind, but is identified with neither. The soul is an emanation of infinite consciousness, but here's the crucial distinction. Unlike a wave that merges back into the ocean and loses individuality, the soul retains its individual consciousness even when it becomes aware of its unity with the infinite. This is a crucial teaching because it means spiritual realization isn't annihilation. It's not dissolution into impersonal void. When the soul realizes its true nature and merges consciously with God consciousness, it doesn't disappear or become anonymous. It becomes more itself, not less. Think of it like this. A drop returns to the ocean. The drop doesn't cease to be a drop. The drop realizes it's always been the ocean. It retains its unique perspective and individual awareness, even while recognizing itself as the whole. You are a unique perspective of infinite consciousness. You are not a copy. You are not interchangeable. Your specific individual consciousness is eternal and will persist forever. But your sense of being separate from the whole, your sense of being divided from other souls, your sense of being limited to your individual body and mind, that sense is the cosmic illusion, the Maya that creates the appearance of division where there is actually unity. The soul has several bodies or sheaths, what the yoga tradition calls the koshas or layers. The physical body is the grossest, the densest manifestation of consciousness. It's composed of atoms and molecules. It's the one you see in the mirror. It's the one you feed and clothe and move through the world. It's born and grows and ages and dies. But inside the physical body, interpenetrating it at every point, is the astral body. The astral body is made of energy and light rather than flesh and blood. It's more subtle than the physical body, but denser than consciousness itself. The astral body is the form you have in astral worlds and dimensions. It's the form you have when you dream. It's the form that continues to exist after the physical body dies. The astral body is the form in which souls exist in the afterlife, in the heavenly realms, in astral planes. Inside the astral body is the causal body. The causal body is made of pure consciousness, but carries within it the seed impressions of past karma and samskara, the patterns and tendencies and mental habits that determine what kind of life you'll create. The causal body is where your soul's essential nature resides. It's the form that carries the soul from incarnation to incarnation. It survives not only the death of the physical body, but also the dissolution and reconstruction of the astral body between incarnations. The soul itself is beyond all three bodies. It's the eternal witness, the observer of all three. It's the consciousness that's aware of all three bodies but identified with none of them. It's what yogis call Atman, which literally means self or essence. It's the pure awareness that never changes, never ages, never dies. And here's Yogananda's most revolutionary and transformative teaching. The Atman in you, the true self in you, is the same Atman that is in every other being. You are not ultimately an individual soul separate from other individual souls. There is only one soul, one consciousness, experiencing itself through infinite bodies and minds and personalities. You are God. I am God. Every human is God. Every animal is God. All sentient beings are God, experiencing itself from different perspectives. Most people reject this idea immediately and violently because it contradicts everything that personal identity has taught us. From earliest childhood, you've been told that you're an individual, separate from others. You've been given a name that distinguishes you from everyone else. You've been taught to protect your individual interests and compete for resources. You see your body as your primary identity. You feel yourself as separate from the person next to you. You naturally assume this separation is absolute and fundamental and eternal. But Yogananda was insistent about this truth. You are both individual and universal simultaneously. Your individual consciousness is absolutely real and will persist eternally. You will never lose your unique perspective. But your sense of being fundamentally separate from the whole is the illusion, just as a wave on the ocean feels itself as a separate wave, distinct from other waves, yet is composed of the same water as every other wave and the ocean itself. So you feel yourself as separate, yet are composed of the same consciousness as every other being. The implications of this understanding are staggering and transform everything about how you live and relate to existence. If your fundamental nature is unity with all consciousness, then separation from others is ultimately impossible. Whatever you do to another, you do to yourself. Whatever you take from another, you rob from yourself. Whatever you give to another, you give to yourself. Not metaphorically or poetically, actually. At the deepest level of reality, at the level of consciousness itself, at the place where ultimate truth resides, there is no other. There is only one consciousness appearing as many. This is why Yogananda taught that the highest morality and ethics flow naturally from understanding the truth of your being. You don't need commandments written on tablets. You don't need external moral codes or religious rules imposed from outside. You don't need to force yourself to be good through discipline. Once you genuinely understand that you are ultimately one with all existence, that the same consciousness animates every being, that there is fundamentally no separation, then harming others becomes as unnatural and horrifying as cutting off your own hand. You would never do it because you understand its harm to yourself. Conversely, serving others, loving others, helping others becomes not a duty or obligation or religious requirement, but the natural expression of your understanding. When you know that others are you, helping them is helping yourself. Loving them is loving yourself. Serving them is serving yourself. This is the foundation for all genuine ethics and morality in Yogananda's system, Maya, the cosmic illusion and the veil of separation. If you are essentially divine consciousness, if you are essentially connected to all existence, if you are essentially eternal and unlimited, then why do you feel separate? Why do you experience such profound limitation? Why do you suffer? Why don't you remember your true nature? Why doesn't the entire world reflect the reality that Yogananda is describing? Yogananda's answer is Maya. The Sanskrit word Maya is often translated as illusion, but this translation is imprecise and misleading. More accurately, Maya means that which measures, that which divides, that which creates appearance. Maya is the cosmic power by which the infinite appears finite, by which the eternal appears temporary, by which the one appears as many. It's not evil. It's not opposed to God or cosmic good. It's not a mistake or a flaw. It's God's own creative power, the mechanism by which consciousness creates the appearance of a universe separate from itself. Maya is like God's technology, God's method, God's tool for creating limitation. Just as you might use a camera lens to focus infinite light through a narrow aperture, creating a defined image on a screen, consciousness uses Maya to focus infinite consciousness through finite forms, creating the appearance of distinct objects and distinct beings. Maya is the filter through which infinite consciousness appears as finite forms. But Maya has a peculiar and crucial effect on individual consciousness. It creates identification. When the soul becomes enclosed in a physical body, Maya causes the soul to forget its true nature and identify with the body. You look in the mirror and think, I am this body. You feel emotions arising and think, I am this mind. You accumulate memories and think, I am this personality. You are given a name and social roles and think, I am this person. You identify with your profession, your family relationships, your nationality, your religion. But none of that is you. All of that is Maya, the illusion of the manifest world. The moment you identify with something temporary, you experience suffering, because everything temporary eventually changes or disappears. Your body ages and deteriorates. Your mind gets tired and confused. Your personality fluctuates with moods and circumstances. Your roles end. Your possessions are lost. Your relationships transform or terminate. Everything you identify with eventually fails you, and that failure creates pain and loss. This is the fundamental cause of all suffering in Yogananda's system. Not bad luck or cruel circumstances. Not even bad karma primarily, though karma is a factor. The root cause of all suffering is identification with what is temporary, with what is illusory, with what is not your true nature. People think they suffer because they're poor or lonely or sick or aging or powerless or disconnected from their loved ones. They think their suffering is caused by external circumstances. But Yogananda taught something more profound. You suffer because you believe the illusion that you are limited, that you lack, that you're separate from the source of all abundance, that you're mortal and vulnerable and subject to forces beyond your control. Change the identification and the suffering changes even if external circumstances remain exactly the same. A billionaire who identifies completely with their wealth suffers acutely when circumstances change and wealth fluctuates. A poor person who understands their true nature as infinite consciousness suffers far less because they're not identified with external conditions. The internal understanding transforms the experience of external conditions. This doesn't mean that external circumstances are unimportant or that you shouldn't work to improve them. Of course, external circumstances matter. Physical health, financial security, loving relationships, meaningful work, these are important and worth working for. But they're important as tools for spiritual growth, not as the ultimate source of your fundamental well-being. They're important as conditions that allow you to practice and develop consciousness, not as things whose presence or absence determines your happiness. A person living in poverty can be happier and more at peace than a billionaire, not because poverty is good or desirable, but because one has understood their true nature and the other hasn't. The internal understanding transforms the experience of everything external. Maya is not something to fight or escape or overcome through denial. It's not evil or wrong or something God created by mistake. It's the necessary veil that allows consciousness to experience itself through limitation. Without Maya, there would be no universe. Without Maya, there would be no individual experience. Without Maya, there would be no spiritual journey because there would be no illusion of separation to overcome. The goal is not to destroy Maya, but to see through it, to understand that what appears as separation is actually unity appearing in form, to remember that beneath all the forms and separations and apparent divisions is the one consciousness appearing as many. Karma, the law of cause and effect governing experience. If suffering comes from ignorance, from identifying with illusion, from being trapped in Maya, then how do you escape? How do you transcend the illusion? How do you remember your true nature? This is where karma becomes the operative law, the mechanism by which you create your experience and through which you gradually learn and evolve. Yogananda taught that karma is not punishment or reward dispensed by some cosmic judge. Karma is not good or bad in a moral sense. Karma is not something God imposes on you as punishment for wrongdoing. Karma is simply cause and effect applied to consciousness and action. It's the law of nature. It's as neutral and impersonal as gravity. Drop an object and it falls. This isn't punishment. It's the law of gravity responding to your action. Eat poison and your body becomes sick. This isn't punishment. It's the law of chemistry. Every action you take creates a vibrational imprint in the fabric of consciousness. Every thought you think generates energy. Every intention you hold creates a trajectory. Every emotion you feel leaves an impression. These don't disappear into the void. They don't vanish without consequence. They return to you. Not as judgment from God, not as cosmic punishment, not as some cosmic accountant keeping score of your deeds, but as the natural consequence of the energies you've set in motion. Think of it like sound in nature. When you play a note on an instrument, that sound doesn't vanish. It travels outward as vibration. In a canyon, you hear it return as echo. The sound never disappeared. It just went out and came back. In the cosmic consciousness, the vibrations you create through your actions eventually return to you as experience. The echo returns to the source that generated it. Yogananda taught that 3 types of karma operate simultaneously in your life. The first is sanchita karma, accumulated karma from all past lives and all past actions, stored like dormant seeds in your causal body. You've created mountains of karma over countless incarnations. You've performed millions of actions. Each action created a seed, but most of these seeds haven't ripened yet. They're stored as potential, waiting for the right conditions to germinate and grow. The second type is prarabdha karma. This is the portion of your accumulated sanchita karma that has ripened and is now manifesting in your current life as your circumstances, your body, your opportunities, your challenges, your family situation, your talents and limitations. This is your karmic reality right now. This is what you must deal with in this lifetime. This is the portion of karma you cannot escape in this incarnation. You planted these seeds in past lives. Now you must experience the harvest. The third type is kriya karma, the new karma you're creating right now through your choices. This is the only karma you have power over in the present moment. You can't undo the past. You can't immediately change prarabdha karma that's already manifesting in your current circumstances. But you can control what new karma you're creating right now through your decisions and choices. This understanding is Yogananda's teaching on free will and determinism. You're not completely free because prarabdha karma constrains your options. If your karma has given you poverty, You can't simply wish it away. If your karma has given you a particular body with particular limitations, you can't ignore those limitations. Your circumstances are constrained by what you've already created in the past. But you're not completely determined or helpless either, because you have freedom in how you respond to your circumstances and what new choices you make going forward. You have freedom in what kind of karma you're creating right now. This moment, right now as you read this, you can make a choice that moves you forward toward enlightenment or backward toward deeper illusion that creates good karma or negative karma that leads toward liberation or deeper into bondage. Here's the radical part of Yogananda's teaching. Prarabdha karma cannot be changed directly. You cannot wish it away. You cannot meditate it away. You cannot pray it away. You cannot bargain with God to change it. It will manifest. It will work itself out. But how you respond to it can change. If karma has given you poverty, you can't wish yourself rich. But you can stop identifying with poverty and identify with your eternal nature instead. You can develop the consciousness of abundance despite the poverty. When you shift your consciousness, your experience shifts. Over time, your changed consciousness creates new karma that brings new circumstances. More importantly, understanding karma completely transforms your relationship with difficulty and challenge. You stop blaming God for your circumstances. You stop blaming other people for your suffering. You stop blaming circumstance or bad luck. You recognize, I created this through past actions. I'm learning what I needed to learn from this experience, and I can create something different going forward by making different choices. This is tremendously empowering because it means you're not a victim of circumstance. You're the creator of your life. You chose these circumstances, even if you don't remember making the choice. You chose them because you needed to learn specific lessons, and you can choose differently. Every moment offers you the choice to create different karma. Yogananda emphasized strongly that karma is not fate. It's not predetermined destiny that you have no power to change. Karma is tendency. Yes, based on past actions, certain outcomes are probable. But you can always choose to act against that probability. If your karma suggests poverty, you can choose to work hard and build wealth. Your effort creates new karma that counteracts old karma. Every conscious choice in the direction of growth weakens old patterns and creates new ones. The goal isn't to eliminate karma. As long as you have individual consciousness, as long as you're taking action, as long as you're making choices, you'll be creating karma. Even good actions create karma. The goal is to create good karma, sattvic karma, karma aligned with spiritual growth and truth and love, while simultaneously practicing meditation and wisdom to ultimately transcend karma entirely and rest in your true nature beyond all action and consequence. The cosmic game, Maya and Leela. Now we need to zoom out further and understand something larger about how Maya and karma work within a bigger cosmic context. If infinite consciousness deliberately creates the universe to experience itself, and if it does this by creating the veil of Maya that makes the infinite appear finite, then the universe itself is fundamentally a cosmic game, a leela, as the Sanskrit word describes it. Yogananda taught that God is playing hide and seek with itself. Infinite consciousness deliberately hides from itself in finite forms. It creates the illusion of separation. It creates the experience of being a limited human struggling with limitation and ignorance, and the illusion of separation. And the whole point, the entire purpose of creation, is the game itself, the experience, the drama, the learning, the journey. Yogananda could say simultaneously that life is deeply meaningful and important, and that it's all ultimately illusion. It's meaningful in the way a movie is meaningful while you're watching it. The drama, the characters, the story, all matter within the context of the movie. The emotions you feel are real while you're experiencing them. You're genuinely invested in the outcome, but it's still a story, not ultimate reality. Once you understand it's a movie, once you've seen behind the curtain and understand how the illusion is created, the story becomes more beautiful, not less. You can enjoy the drama knowing it's not ultimately real. This perspective dissolves the ancient philosophical problem of evil that troubles religious people everywhere. Why does God allow suffering? Why would a perfect being create a universe containing pain and loss and struggle and injustice? If God is all-powerful, why not create a universe without suffering? Because without the possibility of suffering, there can be no drama, no stakes, no meaning, no growth, no challenge that drives evolution. A universe without difficulty is a universe where nothing develops, where consciousness learns nothing, where the game has no stakes and no outcome to hope for. A universe without challenge would be a universe of eternal boredom for infinite consciousness. The very purpose of creation would be defeated. But here's the crucial insight. Understanding that life is a cosmic game, understanding that you're God playing human, doesn't mean you should stop caring about it or stop trying to grow. Quite the opposite. If you understand that you're God playing human, then your sole purpose is to play your role excellently, to learn what this incarnation came to teach you, to grow as much as possible before the role ends. A good actor doesn't question whether the play is real or meaningful. They don't say, "This is just a play, so I won't invest myself in it." Instead, they inhabit their character fully, speak their lines with conviction and emotion, execute their role with excellence and authenticity. And yet they know it's still a play. They maintain both complete involvement in the drama and the perspective that it's not ultimately real. Yogananda taught that this is the right relationship to life. Engage fully, take your circumstances seriously, work toward growth and improvement, love deeply, work hard at your career, support your family, pursue your goals, contribute to society, but maintain an inner awareness that you're not ultimately your body, your circumstances, or even your life story. You're the eternal consciousness temporarily acting out this particular role. This removes both desperation and nihilism. You don't desperately cling to things because you understand nothing is ultimately lost. But you don't become passive or apathetic either, because you understand this life is your current assignment from the infinite consciousness within you. This life is your script, your role, your opportunity. Evolution, the progressive journey back home. All of this creates a comprehensive picture of existence as an evolutionary journey. Every soul begins as pure potential in infinite consciousness. Gradually, across vast cycles of time and countless incarnations, consciousness develops individual awareness and intelligence and free will. It learns through experience. It grows. It evolves. It expands, until eventually it remembers its true nature and reunites consciously with infinite consciousness. This journey isn't random or meaningless. It has direction. It has stages. It has purpose. Yogananda taught that all consciousness in the universe is evolving through the same basic progression, though at vastly different speeds and at vastly different points along the path. The first stage is evolution through mineral forms, consciousness in rocks, soil, sand, the mineral kingdom. These forms have virtually no individual awareness. They're purely matter responding to physical laws. They're simply existence without consciousness. This stage lasts billions of years, while consciousness gradually learns to respond to its environment, learns to absorb energy, learns the basic patterns of existence. The second stage is the plant kingdom. Consciousness becomes sensitive to light, water, temperature, seasons, growth cycles, reproduction, but still no individuated consciousness. Plants simply grow and repeat the cycle. They respond to their environment in programmed ways. No individual choice, no preference or desire, just response. The third stage is the animal kingdom. Consciousness develops sensation, emotion, instinct, memory, desire, aversion, social bonds, play, individual awareness begins emerging. Animals can love their young. They can fear predators. They can feel pleasure and pain. They can play and explore. They have individual personalities and preferences. But there's no self-awareness, no ability to reflect on existence itself, no ability to choose their values or deliberately shape their path. The fourth stage is the human kingdom. This is where consciousness becomes self-aware. A human can ask, who am I? Why am I here? What is the meaning of existence? A human can reflect on its own existence, can ponder its purpose, can choose its values, can deliberately shape its path, can consciously evolve itself. The human level is unique in the cosmos because it's the first level where consciousness can deliberately direct its own evolution. Every other form of consciousness must evolve mechanically, through natural selection and the accumulation of experience. But humans can choose to evolve. This is tremendously significant. The fifth stage is the angel, deva, or enlightened being. Consciousness at this level has realized unity with the divine, has transcended individual ego and separation, acts always in alignment with cosmic law, radiates love and wisdom without limit, sees God in all beings. These are the beings that advanced yogis can contact in subtle realms during meditation, the guides and protectors of lower consciousness. The highest stage is complete merger with infinite consciousness. Though Yogananda taught that even at this ultimate stage, individual consciousness is retained. You don't lose your individuality. You become so vast that your individuality is like a drop, becoming aware it's the entire ocean while remaining eternally a unique drop. You have individual consciousness, but you're no longer limited by it. You have access to universal consciousness while retaining the joy of individual perspective. Every soul is somewhere along this evolutionary ladder. Most humans in the world today are in the early stages of human development, just beginning to develop self-awareness and the capacity for conscious choice. Some advanced humans are approaching the angel stage. A very few have reached complete realization, but all are on the same journey. All are returning home to Source, and all will eventually succeed. The journey is inevitable, Yogananda taught. You will eventually return to Source. Every soul will achieve enlightenment eventually. It might take millions of years of unconscious evolution, of repeated incarnations, of cycling through the same lessons repeatedly until you finally learn them. But it's inevitable. You will eventually remember. It's not a question of if, it's only a question of when and how quickly. The paths. How to accelerate your evolution consciously. If evolution toward enlightenment is inevitable, if every soul eventually returns to Source, then why should you practice? Why meditate? Why pursue spirituality at all? Why not just let natural evolution take its course at its own pace? Yogananda's answer is profound and transformative. Yes, you will eventually return to Source. But it could take millions of years of unconscious evolution, of repeated incarnations, of cycling through the same lessons repeatedly until you finally learn them and develop. Or you can accelerate the process dramatically, enormously, by practicing consciously. Conscious practice is like having a map and guidebook for a journey that most people are taking blindfolded in complete darkness. You still have to walk the path yourself. The path itself is the same for everyone, but you know where you're going. You understand why the path goes the way it does. You understand each challenge as a teaching. You avoid dead ends. You reach the destination vastly faster. Yogananda taught that there are multiple paths, multiple yogas, that accelerate spiritual evolution. These paths are not contradictory or competing. They're different approaches, suited to different temperaments and different ways of understanding and relating to reality. Some people are naturally devotional and reach God through devotion and love. Others are naturally intellectual and reach God through knowledge and wisdom. Others are naturally service-oriented and reach God through karma yoga. Others are naturally introspective and reach God through meditation and direct experience. Bhakti yoga is the path of devotion and love. You return to God through emotional connection, through worship, through longing, through love of the divine. You cultivate intense longing for God. You develop a personal relationship with the divine as your beloved, your parent, your closest friend. You surrender your heart completely to divine love. The devotional path is the fastest path for those with hearts naturally open to emotion and longing and love. Karma yoga is the path of right action and service. You evolve by aligning your actions with your higher nature, by serving others, by performing your duties without attachment to results. You purify your heart through action. You burn away karma by acting consciously and selflessly. You develop the capacity to work without ego, to serve without expecting reward, to act without being identified with the fruits of your action. This path suits those who are naturally action-oriented and who find meaning in work and service. Jnana yoga is the path of knowledge and wisdom. You evolve by understanding the nature of reality, by studying truth, by using your intellect to transcend illusion. You study scriptures. You contemplate philosophical truth. You use reason to see through false beliefs and limiting assumptions. You reach God through direct understanding. This path suits those who are naturally intellectual and who find truth through study and contemplation. Raja Yoga is the path of meditation and direct consciousness control. You evolve by mastering your mind, by developing the ability to perceive directly beyond the senses, by experiencing the higher states of consciousness directly through practice. You meditate. You develop psychic abilities. You experience unity consciousness directly. You access the subtle dimensions of existence. This path suits those who are introspective and who find truth through direct experience. For most people, a combination of all four works best and most powerfully. Use knowledge to understand what needs to be done. Use devotion to fuel your practice with love and longing. Use right action to create the conditions for growth and to purify your heart. Use meditation to contact the deepest levels of your being, where actual transformation happens. Yogananda himself emphasized Raja Yoga, and specifically Kriya Yoga, as the most efficient and direct technology for accelerating spiritual evolution. Kriya Yoga is a specific breathing and meditation technique that directly accelerates the evolution of consciousness by working with the life force and the spine. He taught that regular Kriya Yoga practice can accomplish in months or years what otherwise takes lifetimes of unconscious living. But regardless of which path you emphasize, the spiritual journey requires certain foundational conditions. It requires practice, regular daily commitment to your chosen path. Meditation can't be occasional. Study can't be sporadic. Service must be sustained. You develop spiritual faculties the same way you develop any faculty, through repetition and consistency. It requires understanding, actually studying and contemplating the philosophy so you're not just following blindly. You need to know why you're practicing. You need to understand the philosophy so you can apply it intelligently. It requires discipline, the willingness to redirect your habits and behaviors in alignment with your values. Yogananda never taught harsh self-punishment or asceticism, but he did teach that you must take your spiritual commitment seriously. You can't practice for an hour and then behave destructively for the rest of the day. And it requires grace, surrender to the process, trusting that something larger than your individual will is supporting your evolution. You can't force enlightenment through willpower and effort alone. You must also surrender, receive, allow the divine to work through you. Yogananda was very clear that this spiritual practice is not rejection of the world or harsh ascetic renunciation for most people. Yes, some souls are called to become monks or nuns and dedicate their entire lives to spiritual practice in monastic settings. But most should live in the world, fulfill their duties, maintain their families and careers, serve their communities, while simultaneously pursuing inner development. You don't need to renounce life to evolve spiritually. You just need to practice discipline in your use of life's energies and maintain inner focus on your spiritual purpose. Consciousness and matter, the fundamental unity. All of this brings us back to the most radical and revolutionary part of Yogananda's teaching. Consciousness and matter are ultimately one. What we perceive as solid material reality is consciousness appearing in material form. What we perceive as thoughts and consciousness in our minds is the same consciousness acting at a subtler frequency. The distinction we make between mind and matter, between consciousness and physical reality, is not fundamental to reality itself. It's only apparent from our limited perspective. From a higher perspective, consciousness and matter are different frequencies of the same fundamental reality. Modern physics is beginning to confirm this understanding that yogis have known for thousands of years. Quantum mechanics has discovered that observation affects reality. The observer and the observed are not separate entities. The act of observation changes what's being observed. Consciousness and matter are intricately entangled. They're not separate. They're different frequencies of the same fundamental reality. Max Planck, the founder of quantum theory and one of the greatest physicists who ever lived, stated clearly, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. Everything that we call real is made of things that cannot be regarded as real." Yogananda anticipated this scientific discovery by decades. He taught that what you perceive depends on your frequency of consciousness. An animal perceives the world completely differently than a human because it's vibrating at a different frequency of consciousness. A human perceives the world differently than an advanced yogi because the yogi's consciousness has expanded beyond ordinary sensory perception and can perceive multiple dimensions simultaneously. As you evolve spiritually, as you raise your frequency of consciousness through meditation and practice, your perception changes. What was invisible becomes visible. What appeared solid becomes light. What seemed separate becomes unified. This is not imagination or delusion. It's perception at a different frequency. This is why advanced yogis report experiences that contradict ordinary experience. They're not lying or hallucinating. They're perceiving at a higher frequency of consciousness, where the nature of reality is revealed more directly than it is through ordinary five senses. The most radical implication is this: physical reality as you perceive it through your ordinary senses is not the ultimate reality. It's consciousness, filtered through the limited sensory apparatus of a human body and brain. It's consciousness compressed and distorted by the lens of physical sensation. A more evolved consciousness would perceive an entirely different universe. The ultimate reality is consciousness itself, appearing in infinite manifestations, playing infinite games of hide and seek with itself. This creates a completely different worldview than materialist science offers. It means that matter is not the foundation of existence. Consciousness is the foundation. It means that you are not a biological robot, a meat machine, a complex animal with an illusion of consciousness produced by chemical reactions in your brain. You are consciousness temporarily appearing in biological form. You are God appearing as a human. The universe is not dead matter responding to impersonal physical laws. The universe is alive consciousness expressing itself in infinite forms. The purpose, why you exist and why you were born. Now we can finally answer the deepest question that haunts every conscious human. What's the purpose of existence? What's the meaning of your life? Why did God create a universe with suffering and limitation and death? Why are you here? Yogananda's answer is surprisingly simple and beautiful. For the joy of the journey itself. The infinite wants to know itself through finite experience. God wants to experience being human, being limited, being ignorant, struggling with obstacles, discovering truth, remembering itself. Not because God lacks anything, God lacks nothing, but because the experience itself is delightful. Your specific incarnation, your specific life, has a particular purpose chosen by your own soul before you were born. Every detail about your life, your family, your circumstances, your personality, your talents and limitations, your challenges and opportunities, all of it was chosen by your own soul. You chose to be born at this time, in this place, with these parents, with these talents, in these circumstances, to learn specific lessons. These lessons are not punishments, they're assignments from yourself to yourself. Your soul looked at its past incarnations, understood where it still needed to grow, and said, I need another lifetime to develop compassion. I need to learn to love unconditionally. I'll choose circumstances that challenge me to do that. Or, I need to overcome fear. I'll choose circumstances that force me to face my terrors. Or, I need to learn humility. I'll choose circumstances that humble me and teach me that I'm not as important as I think I am. And it deliberately chose incarnation circumstances designed to teach exactly those lessons. This is why bad things happen to good people. Not because God is cruel or unfair. Not because the universe is random. But because that good person's own soul chose those circumstances to accelerate growth. A soul that wants to develop patience might choose a lifetime with chronic illness. A soul wanting to develop forgiveness might choose parents who were difficult or abusive. A soul wanting to develop strength might choose circumstances of poverty or discrimination that require overcoming obstacles. Not because the soul enjoys suffering. Not because suffering is good, but because suffering is sometimes the most efficient way to catalyze deep transformation. Comfort doesn't teach. Struggle teaches. Loss teaches. Challenge teaches. If your soul wants to develop certain qualities, it chooses circumstances that develop those qualities. The practical implication is profound and liberating. Everything in your life, even the painful things, are assignments from your own higher self, your own soul, your own divine nature. Once you understand this, you stop blaming external circumstances or other people for your suffering. You take full responsibility for choosing your life. And from that place of responsibility, from that recognition that you're the creator and not the victim, you gain the power to change it. The goal: self-realization and liberation. So where is this all heading? What's the ultimate destination of the spiritual journey? What's the ultimate goal of human life in Yogananda's complete system? Self-realization, or in his Sanskrit terms, moksha, which means liberation from bondage, or samadhi, which means merging in unity consciousness. Self-realization is the direct, experiential knowledge of your true nature, not intellectual belief or acceptance of philosophy based on someone else's word. Direct knowing. You realize, you make real in your own consciousness that you are eternal, divine, unlimited consciousness, temporarily appearing as a limited human. You know this not because you've read it or been told it, but because you've experienced it directly. But it goes deeper than that. Self-realization is not just knowing about your true nature, it's becoming established in it. It's such a complete transformation of consciousness that you never lose the awareness of your divine nature, even in ordinary activities. A self-realized being can walk around, eat, work, interact with others, deal with problems and challenges, while maintaining constant awareness of being infinite consciousness appearing in this particular form. The experience of self-realization is often described in terms of bliss, peace, and freedom beyond anything experienced in ordinary life. Not because external circumstances necessarily improve. A self-realized being might still deal with illness or poverty or loss or difficulty. But the illusion of separation has dissolved. you experience unity with all existence. All suffering based on separation ends because you know the separation was always illusory. You see God in everything and everyone. You recognize yourself in the eyes of every being. But Yogananda emphasized strongly, don't get attached to the experience of self-realization. Don't practice spirituality for the sake of having blissful experiences. Self-realization is not about having a certain feeling or experience. It's about knowing the truth. Some self-realized beings report continuous blissful states. Others report simplicity, ordinariness, peace, clarity. The experience varies. What's consistent is the knowledge and in the transformation of how one lives. A self-realized being is no longer motivated by fear or desire or ego. They're motivated by love and wisdom. They act spontaneously, always doing the right thing in each moment, not out of discipline or constraint, but out of genuine understanding of what serves all beings, how the pieces fit together, the complete unified system. Now we can see how all the pieces fit together into one unified system. Consciousness is primary. It creates the universe through Maya, the power of illusion. Individual souls, which are fragments of infinite consciousness, become identified with their temporary forms and forget their true nature. This forgetfulness, called ignorance, is the root of all suffering. But every soul carries within it the memory of its source. Every soul is on an evolutionary journey back to unity consciousness. Through repetition of karma across lifetimes, through learning lessons, through conscious practice, the soul gradually remembers who it is. Until finally, in some lifetime, it cracks through the illusion completely and realizes, I am not separate. I am the infinite consciousness that created the universe. I always have been. I forgot for a moment, and now I remember. And that's not the end. That's the beginning. Because a self-realized being then dedicates their eternal existence to helping other souls realize the same truth. They become guides, teachers, avatars, enlightened beings, whatever form consciousness chooses to take to assist other souls in their journey back home. Yogananda taught that this was his mission. He wasn't just here to enlighten himself. He was here to accelerate the spiritual awakening of humanity as a whole. And he claimed that those who sincerely practice the path he taught will eventually achieve self-realization, either in this life or in the astral realms after death. The complete system is elegant because it makes sense of everything. It explains suffering and injustice. It explains free will and fate. It explains individual uniqueness and universal unity. It explains why spiritual practice works. It explains what death is and what happens after. It explains the purpose of existence itself. And most importantly, it provides a clear path forward. You know where you are right now. You know where you're going ultimately. You know why you're going there, and you know how to get there. You have a map. You have a destination. You have a purpose. You have practices that work. The question now is whether you'll walk the path or whether you'll stay comfortable in illusion. Yogananda's promise is this: if you sincerely practice, if you meditate regularly, if you align your life with truth and service, if you study the philosophy, if you develop discipline and faith, you will wake up. You will realize your true nature, and you will understand that everything in this elaborate philosophical system is not theory or speculation or belief. It's description of reality itself, waiting for you to discover it directly through your own experience.